My husband Ethan slammed the door in my face and shouted, "You're nothing but poison to this family." That was the night he chose his sister-in-law's lies over my truth. I had warned his brother that Isabella was cheating, but instead of gratitude, I was branded a snake. They stripped me of dignity, cut off my finances, and cast me out like I never belonged. I walked into the night with nothing but a suitcase, broken but breathing. They thought I was finished. What they didn't know was that betrayal doesn't kill. It plants seeds, and seeds grow back. Family dinners at the Mitchells always looked perfect from the outside. The oak table gleamed under the chandelier, silverware lined in flawless symmetry, and Margaret, my mother-in-law, presided like a queen guarding her throne. I smiled politely, passed the roasted chicken, and listened to Ethan boast about his latest promotion. Laughter rang across the table, but to me it sounded hollow, like music played on broken strings. I had learned to mask discomfort, to nod in the right places, to laugh when expected. Isabella, my sister-in-law, leaned back in her chair, her phone resting casually beside her plate. She looked radiant as always, long dark hair cascading perfectly, a smile that could charm anyone into forgiveness. She played the role of dutiful wife so well it almost fooled me too. Almost, because just as I reached for my glass, the phone lit up. My eyes flicked down without meaning to. There it was. "Can't wait to see you tonight." My hand froze mid-air, the glass trembling. Tonight! Heart racing, I glanced at her husband sitting across from her, laughing at something Ethan said, utterly unaware. Isabella's lips curled ever so slightly as she typed back beneath the table. My throat tightened. Should I say something? Should I expose her right here in front of everyone? I tried to force a smile, but my chest constricted like someone had tied a rope around it. I looked at Ethan, my husband, wondering if he would believe me. Would he stand by my side if I told the truth? Or would he accuse me of jealousy, of stirring trouble? My pulse hammered as I swallowed the words threatening to spill out. Tell me, if it were you, would you have spoken in that moment? Would you have shattered the fragile mask of harmony and risked being branded the villain? I chose silence, for now. But silence doesn't erase truth. Later that night, after the dishes were washed and the house was quiet, I sat on the edge of our bed scrolling through fragments I had collected, small details that others dismissed, receipts tucked into Isabella's purse, sudden unexplained absences, whispers on the phone. I snapped a quick photo of the glowing message before it disappeared from her screen. The folder on my phone grew heavier each day, a silent vault of betrayal no one wanted to see. The next morning, my chance came. Isabella left her purse in the kitchen while she carried a tray of desserts to the table. I glanced around. No one was watching. My hands shook as I slipped the zipper open just enough. Hotel receipts. The same hotel, multiple nights. My stomach twisted. I snapped pictures quickly, heart pounding at every creak of the floorboard. I told myself it wasn't spying, it was protecting a man who deserved the truth, a brother who believed his wife's devotion was unshakable. But was I also protecting myself? Maybe gathering proof gave me the illusion of control in a house where I was slowly being erased. That evening, Ethan found me in the living room, Isabella's purse still on the table. His eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" The receipts burned like fire in my pocket. I was just checking the time on her phone. I lied quickly, forcing a nervous laugh. I couldn't find mine. He stared at me, suspicion flickering across his face. For a terrifying second, I thought he knew. Then he shrugged, muttered something about me being forgetful, and walked away. I released the breath I hadn't realized I was holding. But inside, my resolve hardened. If Ethan wouldn't see, then someone had to. The truth had to reach the right ears, even if it cost me comfort, even if it shattered whatever fragile piece remained. That night, I sat at my desk, my laptop casting a cold glow over my notes. Photos, receipts, timestamps, every piece lined up like evidence in a courtroom. My heart pounded as I rehearsed what I would say. I imagined the look on his brother's face, the shock, the pain. but also the gratitude. Surely he would thank me. Surely he deserved to know the life he was living was built on lies. My fingers hovered over my phone. Once I pressed send, there would be no return. I whispered to myself, "Do it." And with one decisive breath, I made the choice that would unravel my entire world, because I believed truth could save him, because I still believed truth could save me. And in that moment, I was certain. I had chosen right. The next morning, I could barely steady my hands as I clutched the folder of evidence. Hotel receipts, blurred photographs, screenshots of late-night messages, all of it pressed together like a ticking bomb. My heart pounded as I walked to Thomas, Ethan's younger brother. He was sitting on the porch, sipping his coffee, the picture of innocence. For a moment, I almost turned back, but the image of Isabella's glowing text burned behind my eyelids. "Thomas," I said softly, handing him the folder, "you need to see this." He frowned, flipping through the pages. At first, confusion clouded his face, then horror. His jaw clenched as if he wanted to scream, but couldn't. For one trembling moment, I thought I had done the right thing. I thought he would thank me. Instead, he snapped the folder shut and stood. I can't deal with this. Not like this." His eyes darted toward the house, toward the family within. "I have to tell them." Panic surged through me. "No, please don't." But it was too late. He had already marched back inside, carrying my truth like a weapon aimed at my own chest. That evening, the Mitchell dining room transformed into a courtroom. Margaret sat at the head of the table, stern and unyielding, while Ethan stood behind her chair, arms folded, jaw tight. Isabella sat at the opposite end, eyes wide, cheeks flushed with practiced innocence. The rest of the family filled the seats like a jury waiting to pass judgment. Margaret's voice cut through the silence. "Claire, Thomas has shared some disturbing accusations. Do you deny them?" I swallowed hard. "I don't deny them because they're true. Isabella has been unfaithful. I've shown Thomas proof." Gasps echoed around the table, but before I could continue, Isabella's voice cracked with rehearsed despair. "Why would she do this to me?" Tears spilled down her face as she clutched her chest. "She hates me because I have what she doesn't, a family, children of my own. She's always envied me. That's why she's making up these lies." Her words sliced deeper than any knife. I froze, stunned by the cruelty of her invention. My chest constricted. She had twisted my truth into jealousy, into bitterness, and everyone seemed to believe her. Ethan's eyes darkened, something hard and unfamiliar flashing across them. He shook his head slowly. "Claire, I don't even know who you are anymore." The words knocked the air out of me. My husband, my partner, the man I trusted most, looked at me as though I were a stranger. "I showed you proof," I whispered, voice trembling. "You saw the receipts, the messages." But Isabella collapsed against Margaret, sobbing. "Please, don't let her ruin us. I love this family. I would never betray it." And with that, the verdict was sealed. Days later, Ethan called me into the study. His face was cold, deliberate. "I can't do this anymore. You've poisoned everything. My family doesn't trust you, and neither do I." He pushed a stack of papers across the desk, bank statements, cards, accounts, all closed. "I've shut off the accounts. You'll leave with nothing." I felt the floor shift beneath me. "Ethan, please, listen." His hand slammed against the desk. "Enough. You've humiliated me. You're finished here." Margaret appeared in the doorway, her voice dripping with disdain. "We welcomed you, and you betrayed us. Get out of our house." The house, not my home anymore, just theirs. That night, I packed my things into a single suitcase. The silence was deafening as I dragged it down the hall, past family portraits that never included me, past the door of the woman who had destroyed everything. As I stepped outside, the cool night air hit my face like a final slap. I wanted to believe Ethan would call after me, would come to his senses, but the door stayed shut. 1 week later, I saw him again, only not the man I had known. Ethan walked down Main Street, hand in hand with a younger woman, his smile brighter than it had been in years. To the world, he looked like a man reborn. To me, it was the final twist of the knife. Rain poured the night I left, heavy and relentless, soaking through my coat as I dragged the suitcase down the empty street. The wheels rattled against the pavement, each turn echoing louder than the last. My tears blended with the rain until I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Streetlights blurred into halos of gold, but they offered no comfort, only a reminder that the world kept moving while mine had collapsed. For hours, I walked with nowhere to go. A motel sign flickered in the distance, its neon glow stuttering like a dying heartbeat. I checked in with trembling hands, clutching the little money I still had. The room was small, its walls peeling, its bed creaking under the weight of my exhaustion. Lying there, staring at the cracked ceiling, I whispered into the dark. They broke me. Days bled into one another. I moved like a ghost through the city, invisible, forgotten. I rented a modest apartment, a single room with bare walls and a view of an alleyway. It wasn't home, but it was mine. In the quiet, despair thickened like fog. Eventually, I found myself in a therapist's office, the leather chair swallowing me whole. My voice trembled as I recounted every betrayal, every wound. They broke me, I repeated, feeling the words clawing their way out of my chest. Dr. Harris leaned forward, his expression calm but sharp. Or maybe, he said softly, they freed you. The words startled me, slicing through the haze like a shard of light. Freed me? I had lost everything. But in the silence that followed, a small, unfamiliar thought stirred. Maybe losing them wasn't destruction. Maybe it was survival. The weeks that followed were slow, fragile steps. I applied for jobs, endured rejection, and finally landed a position as an assistant at a publishing house. The pay was modest, but the work kept me moving, kept me breathing. I rented a slightly larger apartment, still humble, but with sunlight streaming through the windows each morning. The light felt like mercy. One afternoon, as I sorted manuscripts, my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in years appeared. Rachel, an old friend I had lost touch with after marrying Ethan. Claire? Her voice was warm, familiar, like a melody I had forgotten. I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. But listen, I work at a new firm. We're looking for someone sharp, someone who won't quit when things get tough. I thought of you. For the first time in months, I felt my chest lift with something other than grief, hope. Within weeks, I was working alongside her, in a role that challenged me, pushed me, reminded me of who I used to be before Ethan's shadow dimmed me. Nights in my new apartment were quiet, but not hollow. I began to write, scribbling in journals, recording memories, piecing together the puzzle of how everything had unraveled. Each entry wasn't just a wound reopened, but a thread of understanding pulled tight. The receipts, the screenshots, the lies. They became part of a story I no longer feared to hold. One evening, while organizing old documents, I stumbled across something unexpected. An email forwarded accidentally to an old shared account, long forgotten. It was Ethan's, numbers, transactions, offshore references buried in vague business jargon. My breath caught. It wasn't just infidelity running through that family. There were shadows darker than betrayal. I closed the laptop slowly, my mind racing. Ethan had destroyed me, cast me out, humiliated me. But now, in my hands, I held the first whisper of a secret that could ruin him in ways he never imagined. For the first time in a long time, I smiled, not with bitterness, but with quiet certainty. The email lingered in my inbox like a shadow, vague numbers and coded references to accounts that had no business existing. For weeks, I did nothing. I told myself it was better not to get involved, better to keep my head down and rebuild my life brick by brick. But at night, the words glowed in my mind, the way embers refuse to die even after the fire is gone. Ethan wasn't just unfaithful. He was dangerous. I learned patience. I learned to put on a mask. Every morning, I went to work with a smile, pleasant but distant, never letting anyone glimpse the storm that roared beneath the surface. At dinners with Rachel or coworkers, I laughed easily, nodded when appropriate, gave nothing away. The truth was mine alone now, a secret coiled tight in my chest. One afternoon, while waiting for a train, I heard Ethan's voice before I saw him. I froze. He was on the platform below, laughing with two men in tailored suits. I leaned against the railing, heart pounding, listening. "Money laundering is easy if you know the right loopholes," Ethan bragged, his voice dripping with arrogance. "You just have to keep the cash moving. Offshore accounts, shell companies, no one's the wiser. And if they do catch on, well, I have friends in the right places." My stomach twisted. He wasn't hiding it. He was boasting. That was his weakness. Pride. Always needing to be seen as cleverer, richer, untouchable. He thought the world was his stage and no one would dare pull the curtain down. I pressed record on my phone, the microphone straining to catch every syllable. My hands shook, but my face remained calm. To anyone watching, I was just another commuter waiting for a train. Inside, though, I knew I had just captured something explosive. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at the files and recordings. Slowly, carefully, I began to compile them. I organized every document, every snippet of evidence, every receipt and email, into folders marked with dates and descriptions. My vault, I called it. But in truth, it was a bomb, one I could choose to detonate whenever the moment was right. I zipped the folders onto an encrypted drive, labeled simply, "In case of fire." Then I slid it into a locked box at the back of my closet. Just knowing it was there filled me with a strange kind of power. For once, Ethan's secrets belonged to me, not the other way around. Weeks passed. On the surface, my life was ordinary. Work, coffee shops, evenings at home. But underneath, I was watching, waiting. Ethan and Isabella's lives played out across social media like a glossy magazine spread, vacations, dinners, charity galas. Yet behind their polished smiles, I noticed cracks. Isabella posted endlessly about luxury, flaunting her handbags and champagne flutes. Ethan liked the spotlight, but he never let go of his phone, always glancing at it, always guarded. They were desperate to be envied, desperate to be adored. That was their weakness, greed and vanity, two poisons that would eventually devour them. At night, I wrote in my journal pages and pages of thoughts, trying to anchor myself. "I will not strike first," I wrote one evening, the ink pressing deep into the paper. "I will let them destroy themselves. My role is to wait, to watch, to survive." Writing it down made it real. It reminded me I wasn't powerless. I was patient. But patience has a price. Sometimes it felt unbearable to hold so much inside, to smile when I wanted to scream, to pretend when I wanted to burn everything down. I reminded myself of Dr. Harris's words. Maybe they freed you. Freedom wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, invisible. One rainy night, as I poured myself a cup of tea, my phone buzzed. A new email. The subject line was blank. My pulse quickened. Inside, a single sentence. "There's an investigation coming. Keep your distance. No name, no signature." Just those words, lodged like a blade in my chest. I stared at the screen, torn between fear and exhilaration. Someone else was watching Ethan. Someone else knew. The walls were closing in, and for the first time in years, I wasn't the only one holding the truth. I sat back in my chair, the glow of the laptop casting shadows across the room. The storm outside rattled the windows, but inside me, a different storm brewed. One of anticipation, of certainty. The game had shifted, and I was ready. The first crack appeared on a Monday morning. I was sipping coffee at my desk when my phone buzzed with a notification. A video was spreading across social media, already gaining thousands of views. I clicked it almost without thinking, and froze. Isabella, her laugh, her face, her arms wrapped around a man who wasn't her husband. The clip was grainy, taken in a hotel hallway, but there was no mistaking it. She kissed him with a passion she never saved for Thomas. Within hours, the clip went viral. News blogs picked it up, gossip columns feasted on it, and the perfect image Isabella had cultivated shattered in front of the entire city, her comments filled with scorn and mockery. The family who once treated me like an intruder now had their golden daughter-in-law dragged through the mud for all to see. Then came the second blow. Ethan's company issued a statement that same week. He had been suspended pending investigation into serious financial misconduct. By Friday, he was gone, terminated, disgraced, escorted out of his glass office by security guards. Newspapers hinted at fraud, at missing funds, at offshore accounts no one could account for. Reading the headlines, I felt the strangest sensation, both vindication and sorrow. Once, I had loved him. Once, I had believed in him. Now, he was just another man undone by his own arrogance. The Mitchell household spiraled into chaos. Margaret, my mother-in-law, suffered a stroke under the weight of scandal and stress. The matriarch who once scorned me lay fragile in a hospital bed, tubes and machines keeping her steady. The family gathered around her, not in unity, but in fracture. Voices raised, blame hurled like daggers. And then, in the middle of it all, Thomas, the quiet brother I had once tried to save, finally found his voice. He confronted Ethan in front of the entire family, his words sharp and steady. "She warned me," he said, eyes blazing. "Claire told me the truth, and I didn't believe her. We didn't believe her. And now look where we are. This isn't her fault. It's ours." For a moment, silence choked the room. Faces turned pale. No one dared respond. It was the truth they had buried for years, spoken at last by the one who had refused to see it. That night, as I sat by my window journaling, my phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated before answering. A low voice crackled through the line. "They're finished, because of you." The call ended before I could reply. My hands shook, the phone slipping from my grip. Who was it? A threat? A warning? Or a strange kind of thanks? I didn't know. But one thing was certain. The walls had closed in on the Mitchells, and I was no longer their prisoner. The following weeks turned the scandal into a circus. Reporters swarmed Ethan's house, cameras flashing as he tried to shield his face. He lashed out, accusing me of orchestrating everything. "She's behind this!" he screamed in one interview, veins bulging in his neck. "She's obsessed with destroying me!" But no one believed him. To the world, he looked like a desperate man clawing at ghosts. His credibility was gone, shredded by his own actions. My silence became my shield. I didn't need to defend myself. The evidence spoke louder than any words could. I had learned patience, and now I used it. I released nothing, said nothing, until the moment was right. And when the time came, I passed a single folder to the right pair of hands. A contact I knew would use it well. Inside were the documents, the recordings, the proof of Ethan's schemes. The person I trusted was not a friend, not even an ally. It was his former partner, the one Ethan had betrayed in business years ago. That was the twist of fate, the anonymous voice that had warned me. It belonged to him, a man with more reason than anyone to see Ethan burn. He had been waiting for his chance, and with my file in his hands, the trap was complete. The news broke in waves. Ethan's financial crimes weren't just rumors. They were confirmed, documented, undeniable. Prosecutors circled, his allies vanished. Even Isabella abandoned him, retreating into silence as her own scandal devoured her. And yet, amid his ruin, Ethan did something I had not expected. He came to me. It was late one evening when a knock rattled my apartment door. My heart thudded as I peered through the peephole. 3 years had passed since I'd seen him face to face, and yet there he was, disheveled, desperate, eyes hollowed by sleepless nights. "Claire," he said when I opened the door, voice cracking. "Please, I need to talk." He stood in my doorway, unshaven, his suit rumpled, the once confident glint in his eyes reduced to ashes. Ethan looked nothing like the man who had tossed me aside 3 years ago. Time and scandal had carved him hollow. "Please," he whispered, voice trembling, "let me in." I stepped aside, not out of affection, but out of curiosity. He stumbled inside like a man half drunk on despair. The living room light cast long shadows over his face, making him look older, broken. For a long moment, we sat in silence, the air heavy with unspoken history. Finally, he dropped to his knees in front of me. His hands shook as they reached for mine, but I pulled them away. Tears welled in his eyes. "Claire, I've lost everything. My career, my reputation, my family. Isabella left me. She ran off with someone else. I don't have anyone left, except you." The twist landed sharp and clean. Of course Isabella had abandoned him. Loyalty was never in her nature. The woman he had defended, the woman he had chosen over me, had left him with nothing but emptiness. "You destroyed me," I said, my voice steady, my gaze locked on his. "You believed their lies. You cast me out like I was nothing, and now you want me to fix you?" He wept openly, his forehead pressing to the floor. "I was wrong. I see it now. I see what I did to you. Please, Claire, give me another chance." Memories surged, of nights spent crying in the dark, of dragging a suitcase through the rain, of being branded a liar by the people I once called family. And yet, beneath all that, there was no hatred left in me. Only clarity. Slowly, I leaned down, close enough that he could see the calm in my eyes. "You destroyed me," I repeated softly. Then, with finality, "Now, live with it." His sobs filled the room as I stood. I walked to the door, opened it wide, and gestured toward the hallway. He hesitated, searching my face for mercy that no longer existed between us. When I didn't waver, he rose on shaky legs and stumbled outside. I closed the door gently behind him. The latch clicked, the sound sharp and final. Light from the hallway spilled across my face for a brief second, then faded as the door shut completely. A strange peace settled in my chest. I hadn't won. I hadn't lost. I was free. In the weeks that followed, the world moved on. Scandals faded from headlines, replaced by newer controversies. Ethan disappeared from public view, his name now synonymous with disgrace. Isabella's face showed up briefly on gossip sites, always with a different man, always with that hollow smile. Then even she faded away, chasing new illusions somewhere far from here. My own life grew brighter, steadier. The publishing firm promoted me, recognizing the dedication I poured into my work. For the first time, I felt valued for who I was, not for the role I played in someone else's family. My career blossomed, and with it, so did my confidence. One evening, Rachel introduced me to Michael, a colleague of hers. Kind eyes, an easy laugh, and none of the arrogance that had once blinded me to Ethan's flaws. Our connection wasn't instant fire, but a slow, steady warmth. The kind that builds trust, that doesn't need masks. Over time, that warmth grew into something I never thought I would find again. Love that felt safe. And yet, even in happiness, I made room for reflection. At night, I still wrote in my journal, pouring ink onto paper. I traced the arc of my story, not to dwell on wounds, but to honor them. "They tried to break me," I wrote, "but in the breaking, I discovered myself." Writing those words felt like closing a chapter not with bitterness, but with gratitude, for survival, for lessons, for strength born out of ruin. One morning, I sat by the window, watching the sunrise paint the city in shades of gold. The world felt new, alive, waiting. I closed the journal and whispered into the quiet, "I forgive you. But I will never forget." The forgiveness wasn't for Ethan or Isabella. It was for me. Forgiveness was my release, my freedom from the chains of their betrayal. That day, I dressed for work with lightness in my step. Michael called, asking if I wanted to meet for dinner later. I smiled at the thought, a smile unburdened by fear. As I stepped outside, the morning air kissed my face. The streets bustled with life. Strangers weaving through their own stories, none of them knowing mine, and I was glad for that, because my story wasn't one of revenge, it was one of rebirth. I walked forward into the light of a new day, not needing anyone's approval, not needing to look back. I didn't need to destroy them to win. I just needed to be free.